Millionaire pretends he's dead to test his black maid and freezes, seeing what she does. Victor Hale had built his empire on suspicion. A man who trusted no one, not his lawyers, not his partners, not even his own blood relatives. To him, loyalty was an illusion, something people pretended at until temptation pried it away. And temptation, Victor believed, was best measured in stacks of cash. That was why, on this gray afternoon, he found himself sprawled on the carpet of his luxury townhouse, his face painted with artificial bruises, his limbs stiff in a staged collapse. The open safe on the wall glared down at the room like a wicked eye, its mouth gaping wide with bricks of gold stacked neatly at the bottom and bundles of cash piled so high they threatened to spill. A fortune laid bare, bait set for the test. And at the center of his cruel little experiment was Clara Johnson. She was barely 25, dressed in the black and white uniform he insisted all staff wear, apron crisp, headband pinned perfectly against her dark hair. She had been working for him only a few months. Yet Victor's suspicions had already begun gnawing at him. She was too quiet, too careful, too good. He hated too good. To him it always masked a lie. From his vantage on the floor, eyes half shut but not fully, Victor waited for her reaction. The moment Clara entered the living room, her tray clattered from her hands, silverware ringing against the floor, her wide eyes darted from his body to the open safe. For an instant she froze, her chest rising in quick bursts, lips parted in shock. "Mr. Hale," she gasped, rushing forward and kneeling beside him. Her finger trembled as she touched his arm. "Sir, can you hear me?" Victor kept still, his jaw slack, forcing his breathing shallow. He listened. Clara pressed her hand to his neck, searching desperately for a pulse. "Oh God, no. No," she whispered, her voice breaking. Her other hand hovered unsure before she leaned closer, placing her ear near his chest. Relief flashed across her face when she caught the faint rhythm of his heart. "Okay, you're alive. You're alive," she muttered, her words half to him, half to herself. Her hands shook as she looked around, frantic. That was when her gaze landed on the safe again. Victor's own heart gave a predatory leap. He watched through slitted eyes, waiting. The bundles of cash seemed to gleam brighter under the lamp, each stack like an invitation. Her brother's hospital bills, her late rent, her thin paychecks. All of it could vanish with just a handful of those notes. Victor knew she needed it. He had overheard her phone calls. He had seen the way she hid her exhaustion behind politeness. Now was the moment. Would she cave? Clara bit her lip hard. Her eyes lingered on the money, but her body leaned protectively over Victor's. She let out a shuddering breath. "Focus, focus, Clara," she whispered fiercely to herself. Instead of moving toward the safe, she slid her arms beneath his shoulders, trying with all her slight strength to lift him. He was heavy, dead weight, and her knees scraped against the rug as she struggled. "Come on, sir. Just stay with me." Tears threatened at the corners of her eyes, but she fought them back. She gave up, trying to lift him, and scrambled instead for the phone on the end table. Her hands fumbled, almost dropping it. She dialed with frantic precision, her voice cracking as she spoke. "Yes, please. I need an ambulance. My employer collapsed. He's breathing, but not responding. Please hurry." Victor's chest tightened at the sound of her desperation. He had expected greed, maybe hesitation. What he heard instead was raw fear. Not fear of being caught, but fear for him. She ended the call and returned to his side, clutching his hand with both of hers. "You're going to be okay. Just hold on. Please don't leave me to explain this to your family. Please." Her eyes flicked once more to the safe, lingering on the glittering bars of gold. A war raged silently behind her gaze. She could take one bundle, just one, and nobody would notice. It would change her brother's life. Her fingers loosened on his hand for a heartbeat. Victor felt sure she was about to rise and reach for it. But then she squeezed his hand harder, bowed her head, and whispered, "God, forgive me for even thinking of it. Money can't buy back a life. Please save him." Victor, still pretending to be lifeless, felt his throat close. The test had only begun. Yet the results were already turning against everything he believed. And Clara, torn between salvation for her family and the duty of saving a man who had never shown her kindness, sat trembling on the rug, waiting for the sound of sirens, unaware that the man she prayed over was listening to every word. Clara knelt on the rug, still clutching Victor's limp hand, her heart hammering against her ribs. The silence of the room pressed down on her, broken only by the ticking clock on the wall. She strained her ears for the wail of approaching sirens, but none came yet. Please hold on, she begged, rocking slightly as though the motion might keep his soul tethered to his body. Please, Mr. Hale, don't leave like this. Victor, behind closed eyelids, felt the words stab deeper than any knife. He had never considered how she might care for him as a person. In his mind, employees were replaceable, their smiles, masks, their kindness just a transaction. Yet here she was, openly pleading for his life, while the mountain of money loomed only steps away. Minutes crawled. Clara kept checking his pulse, pressing her ear to his chest again and again, whispering encouragements into the still air. You're strong. You can fight this. Just hang on for me. Victor's chest burned from forcing shallow breaths. He had meant to end the charade quickly, but now he couldn't. Something in her words bound him there, listening. Every second she chose him over the fortune behind her chipped away at the armor he had built around his heart. Then, in a sudden wave, guilt crashed through him. What if, in her panic, she believed he truly was dying? What cruelty was this? Letting a young woman, struggling already with burdens of her own, endure this terror just to prove a point. The sound of her muffled sob broke him. Clara pressed her forehead to his arm, shoulders trembling. I can't lose another person. Not again, she whispered. My brother needs me strong, and I can't fail at saving you too. Victor froze inside his disguise. Another person, her brother. He thought back to the overheard fragments of phone calls, the hints of hospital bills. She wasn't crying for her job. She was crying because she couldn't bear the weight of another loss. For the first time in decades, Victor felt ashamed. Her grip on his hand tightened suddenly. No, I won't just sit here. She rose to her knees, eyes darting around the room, desperate for something to help. Her gaze again flicked toward the safe. Victor held his breath, knowing temptation was strongest. In desperation, she rose shaky, and for a heartbeat, he thought she was walking towards the money. Instead, she lunged for the lamp cord, yanking it free. With frantic determination, she returned to him trying to improvise, tilting his chin, pressing 2 fingers to his throat, preparing to attempt CPR, even though she wasn't sure she could manage it. That was the moment Victor couldn't bear it any longer. He gasped, sitting up too fast, his act shattering. Clara cried out, stumbling backward onto her heels, her eyes wide with shock. You're alive, she stammered. Victor's throat worked, guilt heavy on his tongue. He couldn't meet her eyes. Clara, I wasn't dying. Confusion, then dawning realization, swept over her face. She looked from him to the safe, still yawning open, then back again. The pieces fell into place. Her lips parted, trembling with hurt. You were pretending. Victor swallowed hard. I had to know. People always take the money. They always show their true selves when they think no one's watching. Her chest rose and fell sharply. So you let me believe you were dying. You let me beg God to save you just to see if I'd steal. The words scorched him more than he expected. He had never been called out like this. Not by business rivals, not by so-called friends. He tried to speak, but Clara's eyes glistened with tears. And the shame he saw there silenced him. Finally, he whispered, but you didn't take it. You didn't even touch it. You stayed with me. Her jaw clenched. Because life is worth more than gold, Mr. Hale, even yours. The sentence cut clean through him. He had wealth piled higher than most nations. Yet in that moment he felt poorer than the young maid kneeling before him. He lowered his gaze. I was wrong about you about everything. Clara shook her head, wiping her cheeks quickly. What you did, it was cruel. But if it means anything, I wasn't staying because you're my employer. I stayed because I couldn't let another human being die while I did nothing. The sincerity in her tone broke something open in Victor. For years he had walled himself away, convinced that trust was a fool's game. But this woman, this maid he had doubted from the start, had shown him a loyalty he hadn't earned. He pushed himself unsteadily to his feet, still shaken. Clara, from this day forward, you will never have to worry about your brother's care. I'll cover everything. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Why would you after all this? Because, Victor said hoarsely, you proved what I never thought possible, that loyalty isn't bought, it's chosen. And I need to learn that lesson, even if it humbles me. Clara looked at him for a long moment, torn between anger and compassion. At last, she nodded slowly. Then I accept, not for me, for him. The two stood in silence. They opened safe, gleaming behind them like a taunt. But neither of them looked at it. For the first time, the money meant nothing. And Victor Hale, the millionaire who thought trust didn't exist, realized he had been tested too. And this time it was the maid who had saved him. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.